And now, Rate That Album, Season 3, with Paul Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming. Two guys who know stuff.
Hi, welcome back to Rate That Album, back and forth album review between myself, Joseph Fremming, and my good friend Paul Muad'Dib. Paul, how are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm rotten. How are you doing?
Oh, God, Paul. Oh, this was bad. Yep, so we decided to do a little experiment. Well, I did, and Paul was game, and we picked one of the top 50 albums of 2022 so far. Paul picked the album right dead in the middle, which, given what we got and the state of indie music at this point, I am not entirely shocked by what we got. So what we are talking about today is a band, Porridge Radio. Album's called Waterslide, Diving Board, Ladder to the Sky. So, Paul, let's get your first thoughts on this. I want to get your thoughts because I have a lot.
Yeah, so do I. So this is, I think, Joe, and, pulling the curtain back a little bit, as it were. You and I have said to the audience many times, we typically don't talk in between about the things, but I think this is the most you and I have talked about an album. I think the podcast, and it wasn't much, but it was enough where we kind of knew where both of our thoughts were.
Yeah.
Boy, if this is on the top, what was it, 45, 44?
Yep.
Albums of 2022, we're in a rough spot.
I think we've been in a rough spot with music, especially indie rock, for at least more than 10 years. I'll kind of get into it with that, but this kind of, it's also part of the problem with this album. So before we get into my views, what are your thoughts on this album going in?
So going in, I thank you for bringing up, because I don't like repeating myself track by track and doing things like that. There is a lot going on here, and I think for me, the big thing that I have here is this is one of the issues that we have with newer artists, and I've fallen in a trope with it as well. And again, I'm not as successful as even these guys are. So in terms of my music and what we did, but I've seen a lot of artists do it. I've toured with artists and performed with artists that have done it in other bands, is that there's a fine line between taking inspiration from your musical idols and trying to do what your musical idols do with your own style. And I feel this one, you and I talked a little bit about it, so I'll bring it up to the audience right away. And every single track is, to me, like Porridge Radio, the lead singer, she is absolutely, has to be enthralled with the Dresden Dolls, Amanda Palmer, the lead singer, Amanda Palmer, to the point where I was convinced for 2 days that this was an Amanda Palmer project. And part of the reason why I thought that was Amanda Palmer, and we'll get into it at some point when we do the Dresden Dolls, whenever that may be. But she got into some big controversy with using Kickstarter to help fund some music, and gotten some deep shit for this, for like what some of the what are they called? When you get them, when you hit certain levels at Kickstarter, the name's escaping me right now. But those stretch goals and things that you get, like basically the money that she was getting was for things like, if you donate this much or give us this much on Kickstarter, we'll give you free hugs and drinks and free merch at the concert. And it's like, well, wait a minute, if you needed this money for this album, why the fuck are you giving out free shit at the like, there was some weird shit that went on with that, and it got her some backlash. And not the
it's
first
like
time.
that tiered payment thing where
Thank you. Yes.
you get the this is what you get if you donate such and such money.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know she got in trouble for that.
She did, and the thing was that, and she earned a lot of money from it. By the way, she only asked for 100,000. She ended up getting like 102. But yeah, it was kind of a big deal. She did get in some deep, like, not trouble with Kickstarter, but like people were scrutinizing like what it was, and she had to kind of walk some things back and then to change some things, and that part of the money didn't go to pay. Like, it was to do this album, but the money didn't go to pay the musicians. That the musicians she got with that money were entitled to the free beer, hugs, and merch. And they started coming forward and being like, hey, we were on this album. We didn't get paid. That's
a lawsuit, huh?
It was a big deal.
Even if you perform on an album, you get royalties for that. Even, like that's.
Yes. So Amanda Palmer, I mean, she's put out albums, since then and things like that, but there's always been a little bit of some controversy. It's not the first time that she's gotten kind of in trouble in the media and that type of thing. And it's just what happens in this day and age. So I can't really get, too much into it. But yeah, that is why I was convinced for like 2 days. I'm like, this is Amanda Palmer. Like, this is a side project, which I think is weird because she is married to Neil Gaiman, who is also in Dresden Dolls, the other member of it. Really, it's just the two of them that are for the most part in that. So I thought it was kind of odd she was doing this without her husband. But then after looking into the band a little bit, which I don't typically do in our picks, but I had to, I was like, oh my God, this has to be it. I was surprised, and it took me another day to finally let it go, okay, this isn't a Dresden Dolls side project. So that's number one. The other one that's all over this is Nico. Nico is all over this album as well. So that's kind of, and I'll get into different artists each song because there are other ones from this, but it's kind of like my big struggle, Joe, at least with this one, was I'm reminded of other artists, and my ADHD got to me really bad because I listened to a track and I'd be like, God, that reminds me of this song from this artist. And I go and listen to that. And God damn it, I have to get back to this. And then I listen to the next song. I'm like, oh shit, that's like this band. That was my dilemma through this entire album.
Yeah. So my dilemma with this was it's so derivative of indie rock from 99 to 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like so many things, and I have a list of things that it reminded me of in no particular order, Paul. I heard Silver Jews in this, Purple Mountaintops. I heard Postal Service. I heard The Shins. I heard Cat Power, and I heard Belle and Sebastian. I heard the Vaselines. I heard the Cranberries. I heard the Hold Steady. It sounds like, it felt to me like like the Ruddles was a parody of the Beatles, and like the songs sound vaguely like Beatles songs.
Yep.
This felt like the Ruddles of indie rock from 99 to 2010.
Yes. I'm glad you said that. I heard Belle and Sebastian. I heard Bright Eyes. I heard Pavement. I heard Modest Mouse. I heard Snow Patrol. I heard Mazzy Star. I heard
Frightened Rabbit.
Yep, I heard the Rolling Stones in this, and I'll get to that song when we get there. There is, and I heard the Cranberries, and I'm glad you brought that one up because there was another song there. I was like, oh my God, who does this remind me of? I'm like, it's the Cranberries. Once you said it, I was like, thank you, God. It was bothering me for 2 weeks. So
I believe my quote was, this band dared to ask the question, what if the Cranberries didn't have any talent?
So, yeah, I'm not going to go that far into it, but let's go. I mean, what do you know of Porridge Radio? Let's start there. I
don't know much about it. I got the wiki up. British band from Brighton, started in 2015, fronted by singer, songwriter, lead guitarist Dana Margolin. The other members are Georgie Stott, Maddie Ryle, and Sam Yardley. It's a British band. They're on one of so whenever somebody suggests a band to me and they're on this label, there's a 99% chance I won't listen to it. They're secretly Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
It's a label that puts out boring indie rock that just makes me my eyes glaze over. I could not be any less interested in the stuff that Secretly Canadian puts out. It's a warning. It's like there's other labels like that too. Sub Pop has turned into that to me because they've leaned really into like weird pop music that I just don't really give a shit about. It sounds exactly like Secretly Canadian. It's indie rock from 2008, recycled into an album in 2022, and that was basically my biggest sticking point because it's just like I've heard all this before, just slightly different.
Yeah, no, there was a lot here that I heard, and that's one of the problems when you do something like that. Is when you start doing things that are other people, it becomes an issue, right? In terms of, because then like people like you and I that are familiar with some of these artists, we go, oh man, like I said, there was this, like, I love the Dresden Dolls, but they haven't put out an album in a long time. Amanda's been doing kind of her own stuff, her own solo stuff. And I, immediately was like, found myself going back to the Dresden Dolls catalog, and I'm going, no, I have to review this album. And, so, and the other thing with it is it is that lo-fi, sadcore thing that I should enjoy. On paper, I should like this album.
It's not even, the thing is, it's like it tries to be lo-fi, but it's so produced that it's...
Yes.
Like like another band that I was getting vibes from this was the band Y. I don't know if you ever listened to them, but it's kind of the same thing with like the keyboards and the off kilter vocals. But yeah, I wouldn't even call this lo-fi because it isn't. It tries to sell it that way, but it's not.
Whoever produced this album needs to be not producing albums. Let me put it that way. Whoever sat by.
It's not even really my big gripe because it's what it is. They did with it. The problem is with the songs.
Well, yes, and I guess in my opinion, I kind of look at this and I go, as we'll get through it, as we start kind of going by tracks. I know we're giving a lot away here ahead of time, but there's quite a few songs where I felt like they were middling and meandering musically, where it was like, okay, you're doing this, but there's no hook, and there's nothing really interesting here. And whoever at the end of it, when they got done recording, went, yes, that's it, can it? That's exactly the way the song needs to be fired. Because that person, male or female, whoever did that, did this band a disservice. And I get, if this really is on the, I know it's on the top, that top list that you have. I'm guessing there's a steep drop off from one point down to whatever, because I would not put this on, I don't think, any top list in terms of the best thing of a particular year. Are we really this devoid of music right now, Joe?
I would argue, yeah, but
fair enough.
That's just because I think I've been of the opinion that indie rock is, even toward the end of 2009 onward, I would argue indie rock has been on life support. It's
for the most part.
Bands are just trying to either recapture what they once had, or they're new bands trying to recapture that sound from, late 90s Neutral Milk Hotel onto, you know, Postal Service, fucking, you know, Bright Eyes, Shins, all that stuff. And it's just, it's not, it doesn't work. Like, there's exceptions, obviously, but I just, I have not, I can't really think in the past 12 years. I think there's maybe even 5 indie rock albums that I've liked.
It's been tough. I mean, there are, I think, certain ones out there. I do tend to lean towards indie rock a little bit more. But I do agree with you in terms of it's hard. I'm going to take a tangent here. And I was talking with a buddy of mine that I haven't talked to in years, and we started talking again recently. And our big thing that we had bonded over was video games. And we were discussing some of the gaming stuff earlier today, actually, while I was driving in the car. And the thing that we were bringing up was, it feels like right now in the gaming industry, especially, there's been no real innovation. It's just been rehashing, remasters, redoing, or games making love letters to other games. And I feel like that's where we are right now, just in media in general.
Absolutely. I mean, let's go back even to movies. Joker movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a love letter to Martin Scorsese. And then I remember watching it. It's like, well, I'd rather be watching Taxi Driver,
right?
King of Comedy, which are the two influences on that movie.
Or for me, like the Batman, right? I remember talking to our buddy Scott, and he's like, "Hey, what did you think of the Batman?" I said, "I liked it better when it was R-rated and called 7."
Yeah.
But I enjoy it as a Batman movie, sure. And, you know, they were like, "Well, what did you think of Colin Farrell?" And I'm like, "That could have been Richard, what's his name?
Richard Kind.
Rich Kind. Yeah, I said that could have been Richard Kind. But, yeah, good for Colin Farrell for getting a Richard Kind costume. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm not being, you know, that way. And I try to make that very apparent when we do these things. It's not just to shit on things, because I do enjoy things very much. And I'm always interested in this. So, you know, when this was on a best of list also, I think maybe set our expectations in a different spot, right? Because one list I found, this is number 5 on the best indie rock album. This is number 5 on a list that I found at one point. Yep.
This is, you know, I want to say they're a young band, but they've been out since 2015, so they're
not young. They got like 6 or 7 albums, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if this was like their first album, I'd probably be a little more forgiving.
Yep.
But like when this is it, and these are the lyrics you're offering, and that's was a sticking point for me, and is just how generic. So not only is the music kind of boring and just reminds me of other bands I'd rather be listening to, the lyrics really didn't help. And the weird part is the singer, she has a very distinctive voice, which I normally gravitate to because I like things that sound different, and it just kind of made things worse for me.
Well, and for me, it was the opposite. Like, again, I was convinced this was Amanda Palmer, because she sounds very much like her. But I went back and listened to some Amanda Palmer and listened to some Dresden Dolls, and I realized she doesn't have the range. That the singer here in Porridge Radio doesn't have the range that Amanda Palmer has. And typically there's a lot of Conor Oberst vocally here. It's with the being able to kind of do the wavering singing, like you're almost crying, that Conor Oberst has been very famous for, and he wasn't the first one to do it, but he definitely is the one that made it big. And I felt like it was almost like a less vocal ranged female version of Conor Oberst. I don't like putting people in that kind of position or that kind of comparison. But yeah, it was like if Nico Case had a little bit of a higher voice, but was shaky. I mean, that's what we got out of it. Now, I'm going to say something here. I know we've been kind of, bashing it for a little bit here, but I don't think I hated this album nearly as much as you did.
Well, because they're leaning so heavy on that particular sound from those particular years, in which I had to sit in a store and listen to this shit for like 7-8 hours. It just reminds me of these bands that I didn't want to listen to. Two, and it was in 2022. I shouldn't be hearing an album that sounds like 2008. You know what I mean? Like,
there is that. There is definitely
that. That bothers me to an extent. And then the vocals again are just reminded me of the David Berman stuff with Silver Jews, where he does the talk singing type of thing. Same with the Craig Finn from Hold Steady, where like I'm hearing that, and I'm just like, but the difference between them and this is that their lyrics are, at least they have a cleverness to them.
Well, not only that, but their music doesn't meander. Their music has hooks. Their music makes sense.
I always say Hold Steady meanders a bit, but
sure.
But but the with the lyrics though, if you're going to be relying so heavily on the vocals and the lyrics, you better have something to say and like say it well.
And
that'd be my argument. And
yes,
here we have like songs where they just refrain like, "I don't want to be loved," over and over and over, and it's like, what? Yeah, we fucking, and then not only that, they refrain that same melody throughout other parts of the album.
Yep. Yes, they do, and that's what that's one of my cardinal sins is overuse of the same lyrics over and over and over. Now, going back to something you said earlier, which was if it was their first album, we'd be more forgiving. Now, I will say that I did want to try and be fair with this one as much as I could. And I went back and listened to some of their older stuff thinking maybe this was a departure. Maybe this is something that they're doing a little bit differently. It sounds like all their fucking albums are like this. And the problem is it's very limited in terms of what it is. So the fact that this is your sixth album doing it, maybe lyrically, the first couple albums maybe were a little bit more up there, and maybe that's probably why this is on a list. Like, as you and I both know, typically artists that have been around for a while and established on lists, like, for example, we've talked about with many times with Rolling Stone, is a lot of times they get a pass because it's just that band putting out an album. And it's like, oh my gosh, they put out another album, regardless if it's good, bad, or whatever, we're going to give it a fucking 4 out of 5 because it's this band. And that may be what's happening here with some of these lists that at least I've seen with why it's on it, because I'm on the same boat with you. I don't think I would call this, I mean, this is again number 5 on indie rock for 2022 and number whatever. What number was it on your list, by the way?
It was the one you picked, whatever.
22?
22, yeah.
Yeah, it was number 22 on that list.
Yeah, it's pretty much straight in the middle.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, if it's number 22 on that list, it's number 5 on a list that I found, it's number 7 on another list I found. I gotta sit back and I gotta go, why? Why? And again, I'm gonna come out there and say it right now. I don't hate it. There's things that I don't like about it. There's some things I do like. And I struggled with this, and we'll get there, I think, when we get to our final thoughts on it. But why don't we move on and just start going tracks, Joe? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that. And so we start with, and this is just
pompous.
This shit pisses me off.
Yep.
It's an instrument. It's Dash is their opening track, which is just an intro, an instrumental intro to a song back on the radio. And the only reason I can think of that they separated this was they wanted Back on the Radio to be somewhat of a single.
I think so. And
at least like college radio. So like you cut a minute out of it, and so it'd fit better in a rotation. That's a cynic in me because I don't
answer your question. It's about 7:23 and 17 seconds.
Alexa, shut up.
Joe, you got someone over today? No, it's Alexa.
So it's just cutting a minute out of a song called "Back on the Radio." That's the only reason I can see why they would do that. Otherwise, they're just being pompous, and they don't have the chops for that.
I question if it isn't a pompousness to it. Yes, it's an instrumental, but really all it is just reminds you of like an opening, like when a band is first like getting on stage and kind of doing this thing, like, you know, doing its kind of where they somewhat tune up, but they start kind of playing what that's going to be the first song, and then it goes in the first song. Just the fact that all it really was just this guitar riff with a little bit of drums here and there. Yeah. I mean, to do this when it's on tape or on 8-track or whatever makes more sense because it flows seamlessly from one track to the next. But when you do it on a streaming or on a CD or whatever, the problem with it is you get that, like when I was listening to it on mine, there's that little bit of a delay when it kicks over from song 1 to song 2. So it's not even seamless. Like it in this day and age, like this is I think a holdover to that age of the old school when artists used to kind of do things like this, versus, you know, again, prime example is an album, They Might Be Giants, Apollo 18. They have a song called Fingertips, and on tape and later versions of the song now with the streaming services, it was all seamless. It was basically one song. But when it came out on the original CD, it was all these songs that were in between 15 to 48 seconds, and it would go from one to the next to the next to the next. And again, on tape and on when I made it a full thing later on streaming, it flows. But there's always that little bit of a second when it kicks over to the next track, and it doesn't work. So I find it, again, this comes down to production to my mind, is why a modern production person wouldn't think about these things makes me question who the fuck was on the board when they were writing these songs. That's me.
Yeah. It doesn't help that the song, and again, so this is just the intro and going into Back on the Radio. And we have 13 tracks on this, and I only like one. The one I like is dead last on this, so this is just going to be an agonizing journey. Yeah, and I just, again, my notes was this sounds like every crappy indie band from 2007. That was my notes.
Yeah, so
atonal vocals. I said it sounds kind of like the Shags. If you never heard the Shags,
I'm familiar. Yep.
They're an acquired taste.
They are an acquired taste.
So yeah,
I will say that this one, like immediately, like when I heard this track, this is when I thought it was, like I said, Amanda Palmer, and I'm going to stop bringing up Dresden Dolls now because I don't want to bring that up every single fucking track. So I'm done bringing that up. But like immediately when I heard this, that's what I was like. And then when it got to some of the vocals, the chorus, lock all the windows, shut all the doors, and get in the house like down on the cold hard floor, talk back to the radio, think loud in the car, I miss everything now, we're worth nothing at all. It did kind of have this, again, I get the sad core. I get that aspect of it. It's not quite goth. It's like I said, it's more of a lo-fi sad, or an indie sad. It doesn't really tick off the boxes for me to be goth. That's why I would classify it in that.
Sad core. Jack Black called Belle and Sebastian and High Fidelity. This is sad bastard music.
Yes, it is. and I mean,
I
and
like some sad bastard music. I like me some Bell and Sebastian.
mhm.
I did not like this. So
Yeah, because you got Bell and Sebastian, you got Arab Strap, you got
Yeah.
Cat Power, you got kind of Lana Del Rey, those are things that kind of fall in that down tempo,
Yeah.
that sad core. And
I
this,
like it. I like
Yes.
that stuff. This was just again. I think it was like the sound, and then how just the generic the lyrics are. Like it was. If you're gonna be like quirky and different with your vocals again, and you're gonna be more talky singing.
Yep.
You better have string words along a little more cleverly than this.
and again, getting back to the chorus, and again, my pet peeve of repeating the same lyrics, right? So lock all the windows. So okay, blah blah blah. She says that like 4 times at the end chorus, and it's like, if you're gonna do things like this, you're gonna make the music minimalist, because I would consider this minimalist music. Maybe more so than lo-fi. Like this is minimalist, indie minimalist music. You have to do something to make it interesting. You're exactly right. And the problem is when the lyrics aren't really connecting a whole lot with the audience, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
No,
So-
it's there's like so many ways you can. There's that yeah. Oh, let's get to the next track.
trying.
Which
Which-
is like it's kind of like starts off a little jauntier, upbeat. I believe. I'm like again, some of these just blurred
Yep.
into me because it was
Yep.
just all, singing and again, I was like you expect at least some better lyrics if you're gonna pull that off because you're just gonna sound like every other chucklehead
Yep.
indie rock band, but you're gonna make your vocals stand out outside the band. You're not doing anybody favors then. And this was, my first note because the song's called "Trying," and I said, "Not nearly hard enough."
Yeah, for me with this one, when I first heard the opening to it and it starts going and kind of the guitar work, I was like, oh, Pavement. That's Pavement. That's Steve Malkmus right there.
Yep, I heard Pavement, and then I also put in my notes. This band sounds like it would soundtrack a shitty Zach Braff movie, so it also gave me Shins.
Yes. Yeah.
The Shins.
Yep. I heard Shins. Yeah. When you mentioned Shins earlier, I went, I know exactly what track he's talking about. Yep. Yeah. Now, again, I promise.
I wish we were talking about like a better indie rock band.
So I promised I wasn't going to keep bringing up the Dresden Dolls. However,
just stop then, Paul.
Well, no, the reason why I have to do it is part of the lyrics of this come right off of an album. I don't remember the name of the song off the top of my head, but I know the song is off of Yes, Virginia. There's part of this where, like, the whole "my body's made of wood and stone, it can rot and burn." There's something very, very, it's not verbatim, but it's very close. And I was just like, ooh, again, which is why I kept thinking what I was thinking. But I had my notes here. It's Pavement, but it's too repetitive.
Paul, when you recited those lyrics, the first thing that popped in my mind right now was like, maybe they should go take a creative writing class at the Learning Annex.
Well, I mean, this is my body's made of wood and stone. It can rot and burn. What if I took what I shouldn't have took? What if I got what I should?
And it doesn't burn, so that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. What if I was stronger? If I could let go of it, and if I was older, would I know what to do with it? It's like you're trying to be. I get. This is something that I feel worked back in the day lyrically, where it was kind of that plan where it's like, what if I took what I shouldn't have took? What if I got what I shouldn't have got? Like
these are done to death. That's the thing. By 2022, it's done.
It's done. That style, that kind of wordplay, and that kind of trying to be deep. Joe, this was conversations we were having when we were stoners in high school, man.
Yeah.
Like,
the thing is, like, okay, you can pull this off. but it has to be clever.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be clever. If you're gonna do the stoner existential, that's a lot of this existential shit on here, and then
It's very existential album.
and then like the relationship shit, which again, it's like that should be fertile ground for anybody because everybody's gone through bad breakups and bad relationships. But then later on, they compare it themselves in the relationship as a splinter in the skin that the body rejects. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, if I was, it just reminded me in college when people would, I'd be in creative writing classes and people would give like the most ridiculous, like poem or prose along that line. And it would just be like, it was cringeworthy then, it's cringeworthy now.
Yeah, I know. We'll talk about that song because I have issues with that song and I have theories on what that song's about. But
well, she wants to be rejected like a splinter, Paul.
Well, I think it goes a little bit more than that. I actually think I don't even think it's that deep, but we'll get there. I don't even
She actually got a splinter.
Yeah, no, I think it's something else. I think it's something.
Literally, it's like really just on the nose. Like
it's on the nose. She really got a splinter. They're on a fucking swing set, and she got a splinter. No, yeah, this is the thing with this song. I mean, and it's very short lyrically, but the music isn't interestingly and unfortunately musically. This is a very meandering song. Doesn't really go anywhere, and again, it doesn't have a hook. It doesn't work. So the next one is what is the next one? It is Birthday Song, I think.
Yep, Birthday Party. I don't want to be loved. I don't. It's just.
Oh God.
Just like we get it. That's a hot. That line should just be on a black T-shirt and sold in Hot Topic.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. So, hang on, I'm doing a quick count.
Nothing more exhilarating than counting on a podcast, Paul.
10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Doing some quick math here, Joe. Hang on. She says, I don't want to be loved 58 times in a 4-minute song. Oh, to me, that is my personal hell. That is very painful.
58 times. I wonder if even McCartney said, "Hey Jude" that many times.
Or on a more modern approach, did Bruce Springsteen say 48, 41 shots? 55 times. Yeah, and the track is a fear of death, a fear of dying. Why won't the dog pick up the stick? Panic sweats, you wake up crying, always feeling kind of sick. This one gave me a Belle and Sebastian vibe. I actually do like the music and where it went in this one. This is also the track where I don't know who the backup singer is, but I want an album by her instead of this.
Yeah.
I
thought that on a lot of the songs.
On a lot of the songs.
Vocalist at least is doing something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like the backup vocalist. It's kind of like when it reminded me almost of Melissa Oftenmauer when she was with Hole, and she'd do some of the backup singing for Courtney Love, and I'd be like, God, I really want to hear an album by her, and I'm glad she did put out albums. So hopefully, maybe the backup singer will get some, some cred. And maybe put out her own album because she can sing, and I actually enjoy her voice more than what was going on with our lead vocalist.
Yeah, our lead vocalist. If you're gonna do something like that, kind of different, you better be doing something with the lyrics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, it's just if you're gonna make your vocal stand out in front of all this music, in such a kind of a different, I would say, jarring way. It's not like what you hear. You have to make the lyrics count, and here they don't.
No,
we got 54. I don't want to be loved.
Actually, I think I miscounted. I think it's 56, 57. I think it's 57 times. 57 times I don't want to be loved. I don't want to be loved 57 times. And like other lyrics, besides that is I'm always playing solitaire. I'll always kiss you on the lips. And if I die, then you can keep it. I don't want to feel a thing. Always on my best behavior. Sometimes I can't hold it in. Always wait until it's over. I don't want to feel a thing. And I know there's someone out there that's hearing these lyrics and is getting connected to it. And I don't want to take away from that because that's definitely part of what music is.
Yeah.
But for, let's be honest, at this point in our life, you and I are out of the demographic where anything is for us anymore outside of fucking insurance commercials.
yeah. But, so yeah, I can see that being resonant, but, but still, it's, I don't relate, but whatever. I still think the lyrics could have been worked on a little bit more.
A little bit more.
It should have been worked on a lot more.
Well, again, this is why it comes down to me like production, who was there and who was giving this the okay and saying, yes, that song is finished, move on to the next one, because that was misleading and doing no one any favors, the artist and us as an audience.
Paul, you're just assuming that they had better things in there within the band for the producer to work with. That might be a false equivalence here. This might have been the best they offered.
Maybe it could be. So let's move on to the next one, which is End of Last Year. Joe, I heard a band that I love right off the bat. Did you hear it?
I just remember. My note, because it has the line, "Do you remember when?" And whenever I hear that line, there's an episode of The Sopranos where Tony Soprano's annoyed by a guy talking about the old days, and he says, "Do you remember when is one of the lowest forms of communication?"
So the guitar work right away is Modest Mouse.
Yeah, Isaac Rock.
Yeah.
Every song on here makes me want to listen to a different band.
Yep, that's one of the problems with it, and the lyrics also. This is another one of those lyrics. No, not this one. It's the next one. Yeah, this is Modest Mouse. And it is that guitar work. There's no mistaking it. And they sit there and say, well, Modest Mouse doesn't have the monopoly on that. Modest Mouse will make it fucking interesting. So all there was kind of like this little bit of a, like the flip and the notes that is absolutely, no question, Isaac Rock from Modest Mouse. But it doesn't go anywhere. So again, all it does is makes you think about another band and go, oh my God. Now again, I do feel like there is this thought process, and I really don't want to, because I want to give them more credit than what I'm about to say here and not be as cynical. But there's part of me thinking that there was a conversation of them going, well, that sounds like Modest Mouse. And they're going, a lot of our listeners, kids days, they don't even know who Modest Mouse is because they were born well after they were famous. And I go, oh, maybe it is that way because, again, for people like us, we hear it and we go, oh my God, but someone else may have heard it who've never heard of Modest Mouse and go, oh, I really like that guitar riff. I really like the guitar sound.
I think you're giving too much credit for a producer finding more out of this band, Paul. I'm going to be the flip side of that. I'm just going to assume this is the best they gave that producer.
Okay. Because, well, let's get into...
is there any evidence telling us otherwise?
No.
And then plus, and this also has the refrain of I don't want to be loved. This one also has kind of the same melody of everything you break everything you touch. You break everything you touch. Break everything you... it's just it does this refrain, and it's just oh my God, you're trying to earworm something that's not working.
Yeah. You have that one, and I don't know if I want it. Don't want to go back. Don't know if it's mine. I don't want to go back. Which is said 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh my God! There's just so much repetition, Joe. I mean, literally about 20 times. There's things in here that are said. Yeah, you break everything you touch. You break everything you touch. Yeah. Cut off my shoes. Take them. Instead of taking them off, cut off my hands because they itch so much. Talk to myself because I'm getting so blue. Do you know you break everything you touch? And I'm sure that's resonating with someone, but to me, that's very surface level. And it's elementary songwriting. And I hate saying that.
But it is. And if you're a band that's been around now, what, over 6 years? 7 years now? 2015, yeah. 7 years, you better be doing something better than what a kid's writing in their notebook in high school.
Yeah.
I'd hope so.
So next one is Rotten. I'm gonna be straight up. I hate this song. Hate this song. Hate this song. I just hate it.
Apples change, Paul. The taste of apples change.
I
feel like honestly, I feel like this was like, maybe they just rearranged, like did like a really awkward Smashing Pumpkins cover. Like this is like the generic kind of like early Pumpkins cotton shit. Like
no, it definitely has some early Billy Corgan style lyrics. Ask lyrics in this one. Yeah, he moved on beyond that though. He sure did. They're working on the third. They're working on what they're calling their trilogy of what the hell was it? Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. They're making. I don't know.
Oh, nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
I was talking to our mutual friend Dan, and I was like, I thought about it, and like Smashing Pumpkins haven't put out a listenable album in 25 years.
No. They did put out Oceana, and I do enjoy Oceana.
Yeah.
There's listenable songs on Oceana. There is. So yeah, getting back to this one, the Rotten lyrics, again, I hate this song, but this year the taste of apples changed and I did a bad thing. This year the apples change and I say what I need now. Trying to walk in the balls of my feet, it hurts. It hurts, my puny muscles ache. Trying to sing away my rottenness, you tell me I should go out. Again, this is middle school poetry night. Beat poetry. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to be this mean, but this particular song.
Kind of a job, Paul.
I understand. Yeah.
Like they put it out.
No, they did, and it's out there for criticism. But this, I think, was my least favorite song on the album by far. To the point where when I was doing after my repeated listenings of 3 times, I had to skip the song every time. I was like, I cannot listen to this song again. I really don't like it.
Well, we're going to go back and back and back again with this next track, and back and back and back again, back and back and back again, because I was in your dream last night.
Yep. You can't tell me something.
The next track, you could be happy if you want to, with all U's instead of spelling out Y-O-U. They went the Prince route, which Weird Al says only Prince can really do that.
Can do that. This one, to me, had a Snow Patrol vibe to it. And
that wasn't helping with me, Paul.
No, it doesn't really help with me either. But it definitely had, like, I could hear where there was the Snow Patrol reference to it. I was in your dream last night. I came to tell you that I don't know anything, and it's starting up again. And that's kind of that Isaac Modest Mouse style of, nothing, nowhere, and now, which he does a lot in his lyrics. And again, with them, it works because the music is interesting, which makes the vocals a little bit more interesting. And I think that is the biggest problem here, is the musicianship is, I get it's indie, but there's a difference between indie and boring.
Yeah, and it's a fine line, too, a lot of times.
It's a very fine
experience. It's a fine line between indie and boring. It's the old Spinal Tap thing. There's a fine line between clever and stupid.
Right. So, that's what it is. Next one is Flowers. Now, I want to say this is what I think is one of the better songs on the album. I actually
because on Monday she cleared all the gunk from your heart, Paul?
Well, my God, you'll always be thinking of me.
Doubled it out to make room for the light, Paul.
Spat in my face and told me, don't drag me into this. You
cut tomatoes, and were they soft to the touch?
Yeah, when you will punish me for what I have done. And I really think it's funny that the piano in the beginning, if you caught that, it's a derision of She's Like a Rainbow by the Rolling Stones.
I didn't even pick that up, but you're fucking right.
It is. It's absolutely She's Like a Rainbow from the Rolling Stones. It really is. It's slower, and it's done with that weird out of tune sound that you're hearing a lot of times now with in Ableton and that type of thing. But yeah, no, it's She's Like a Rainbow. Yeah. The Rolling Stones, if they really wanted to sue on this song, they could, which is funny because the name of the song is Flowers, which also has a Stones connotation. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Son of a bitch. Or you Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, you sued that, what was it, the Verve for that Bittersweet Symphony. Get on Porridge Radio.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So next one is Jealousy. What was that band? Was it Candlebox? Who did it in the 90s? Who did it better? What the fuck was that band that did the song Jealousy? I can't. Was it Candlebox? I think it was Candlebox.
Probably. But nothing makes me quite
Gin Blossoms. It was Gin Blossoms. It was not Candlebox. It was the Gin Blossoms. They did it better. Go on.
Man, you telling me that, now nothing makes me quite as sad as you, Paul.
It's easy. I'm easy to get to know. I'm easy. And jealousy, it makes me bad.
Jealousy's bad.
Jealousy's bad, okay?
Jealousy's bad, guys.
Jealousy's bad.
I feel like we're punching down so much, but again, they put it out. It's on these lists and these lyrics. I feel like they could have been a lot better. And
yeah, they could have been.
I feel like I'm Again, it's so derivative of other bands too, which doesn't help.
Again, I could see some 16, 15-year-olds listening to this and really enjoying it. I can, and I'm not disputing that, because they don't have the other artists and the knowledge of
the points of reference was like we do. Like
the points of reference. Right. So I feel like, again, I do feel like there was something there of, well, this is going to go, there people hear this, they're going to think of this, this, and this. And I'm thinking someone went, it doesn't matter because you're not going for that person. You're going for the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old sad kids in middle school and high school. So don't worry about what the 30, 40, 50-year-olds say and go, oh my gosh, it's like that song. You've been seeing a lot of, and the reason why I bring that up and why I think it's happening, because that conversation happens too much now. I mean, it was happening even back in the day with like God, and this is the reason why I know people get mad at me when I say I'm not a big Led Zeppelin fan. It's because they ripped off over half their fucking catalog.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest problem with them. People go, oh my God, they're so great. And I'm like, if they're so great, they would have written 80% of their music, not 30% of their music. So I feel like this, and what's their name? They got in trouble for a lot of bands have gotten in trouble for this, but Bruno Mars with what was that song? What's that?
No, I was thinking of the Blurred Lines song where the gay family sued.
Yes, there's that one, but what was it? Harlem? No, what is it? Don't believe me, just watch, whatever the song that is. And what is that song? The Bruno Mars song, Don't Believe Me, Just Watch. There's that it's not 24 Karat. That's bothering me. But anyways, there was so many lawsuits on that. Oh, Uptown Funk. Uptown Funk, thank you. There were...
It was very derivative of other things.
To the point where Uptown Funk, they got sued by so many people on that song that I think the writing credits on it now is like 18. Yeah. Yeah, because they had to include a whole bunch of other people on it because of so many people that went, that's our song, that's our song, that's our song. Yeah, like Charlie Watson, Robert Wilson, Lonnie Simmons. I mean, there's so many people. Like, there was a lot of people that came forward and were like, that's this song, that's this song, that's this song. So let me see here. It was Oops Upside Your Head by the 1978 The Gap Band. They got co-writing on it. A Serbian artist, Victoria, that infringed on hers. The band, the electro funk band Collage sued. Zap sued for Bounce to the Ounce. I mean, it's bad. And Quincy Jones was like, dude, come on, this has my fingerprints all over it. Yeah.
I was gonna say, when I first heard that song, that sounded like Quincy Jones's work with Michael Jackson.
Exactly. So yeah,
Barry Gordy's work with Michael Jackson.
I mean, to the point where when that song plays, like, nobody makes any money because it's just the royalties. Like, everyone's down to like 3% on their royalty for that song.
Well, what happens when you just pilfer? You know,
yeah. Yep. So there's that. And then, Joe, we get to I Hope She's Okay Too.
Okay. So, we're going through these lyrics, Paul. This is another repetitive. When I took a creative writing classes, when you write, you want to avoid telephone poles. And what I mean by that is avoiding the word I.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole album is telephone poles and U-turns.
Mm-hmm.
It's I-U. Just you and I.
Mm-hmm.
Together forever.
This was something that the Beatles would do all the time in their early music. You, me, we,
yep.
I. And it worked back then. But the thing was that
they weren't trying to be deep, though. That was the thing. They were just making pop music. This is when you get to indie music, you kind of there's an expectation. There's a little bit more to it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just throw that out there. There's a pretension to indie music that people are kind of expecting.
Yep.
And they're doing like you said with the Beatles, but that's not, we're all like, as much as I love the Beatles, they're not a deep band for most of their
career.
Most of their catalog does not have a lot of deep songs in it. Mm-hmm. So like when you get an indie band kind of doing that, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to get into this in this a little bit. And I think what people forget is that the Beatles in total only did 213 songs. I know people go, well, that's a lot. But when you really think about it, what they did, only 188 were originals. And people forget that they were only around for 8 years. I think collectively, in terms of hours, I want to say it's something along the lines of like a total 7 hours and some odd minutes, if I'm not mistaken, of total music that the Beatles actually put out. And it's not a whole hell of a lot, but because they were doing these things, and if you look when they were doing that I, me, you, we, and this is an interview that McCartney had, that's what they were doing in their pop phase because that's what resonated with the pop at the time.
It still does. And it's like a lot of pop music you hear to the day still does that.
Yep.
It's pretty universal.
Yep. And so they said that and McCartney said that when we started moving away to we started doing Help and those type of things and moving away, we really moved to get away from that I, you, me. And you said you noticed that in our later music.
Yeah.
We really tried to get away from that lyrically because it was so poppy and it worked for that time, but we wanted to stretch ourselves and do something different.
It's also pretty limited and it's not very creative when you're always using I and me and you and, it's just not very creative. And, again, like you take creative writing classes, they tell you to find ways to write around that.
Yep. And to give you an idea.
I took poetry, avoid I's.
I remember, I think we were in the same creative writing class, if I'm not mistaken, or we had the same creative writing teacher. I know we all did. But I remember one of the more interesting things that we had to do, which was we had to write a thing on why locked doors give you freedom. And I thought that was a really interesting exercise of how to completely change your perspective on what you think is a thing. And looking at this, we already talked a little bit about the lyrics. I associate you with good things, and I associate you with good things, and I sometimes can't imagine anything at all. I sometimes can't imagine anything, and you don't have something to tell me, and you don't have anything at all, and you don't have something to tell me, and you don't imagine anything at all, because I associate you with good things, and I sometimes can't associate anything at all. I sometimes can't imagine anything. And you don't, and don't you have something to tell me? And don't you have anything at all? And don't you have something to tell me? And I can't imagine, and you can't imagine anything at all. And I associate you with good things, and I can't imagine anything at all. And I can't imagine anything at all. That is literally all the lyrics for the entire fucking song.
Yeah.
That is it. It's bad. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, again, it's the whole album is I, you, me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very, it really just kind of boxes you in where you can go with songs like that.
Yeah.
As does. I mean.
Yeah, it doesn't. That one bothered me. That one really bothered me. And again, I'm just going to go back and say, we know who I think that song really sounds like. So, moving on, we got Splintered,
which is a lot of I's and U's, Paul.
It's a lot of I's and U's.
Again, like it's painfully noticeable.
So I'm going to get
like
vulgar.
How this got to be on a top 50 lists plural. It astounds me. It astounds me. And like again, I understand there's younger people who are listening to this and it resonates with them.
Yep. And
I get it because I listen to a lot of shit too back in my youth, and I still do. Like it's time and a place. Song hits you. Whatever. But I'm listening to this now, and it's the whole album's I, me, my, you. Me, me, my, me, you, I. Mm-hmm. And it tries to do something here.
Yeah.
It at least tries, and I'll give them credit for that with I got a splinter last time I visited you, but my body pushed it out.
I didn't mind this one.
It becomes like a theme with this song of like two or one and the some pushing the other out. Like I get kind of what they're doing.
Yes.
Again, when you're limited with I, me, you, I, me, I, you're so limited at that point.
I will say musically, I enjoyed this one more than the other ones because this one also felt like it had somewhat of a hook. Not a great one, but it didn't meander like this one. And I did like the backing vocals a lot. That really...
Again, I wish the backing vocal singer would sing more.
Yeah. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say I think that there's a double entendre here with this song, and I'm gonna get vulgar. So again, anyone that doesn't want to hear this, I think this is about her after getting jizzed in, her getting the sperm out of her. I think that's what this song's about. Yep.
I do.
I do. Yep. I do. I think that's exactly what I think there is a sexual double entendre on this song. I really do. I think it's about procreation. I think it's about a struggle between someone wanting to have a pregnancy and someone doesn't. That's what I looked at it as.
I got a double entendre, but I didn't picture a man. I thought a woman, but that's me.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah, and that may be, but that's how I looked at it. So this is
you're a pervert.
I'm absolutely
I'm just realizing what you just said.
Yeah.
God damn it, Paul. Keep it in your pants. Holy shit. This is a family podcast.
Is it a family podcast? Is it really? Maybe I should mark this one suitable for children. All the other ones I don't. But no, like I said, and this is something that I will say about this particular song, which was, even though it has the me, my, I, blah, 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 I will say this one is vague enough to where we can have a kind of a conversation about what it means. I think this is one of the more clever songs on the album.
It's the only clever song.
It's the only clever song on the album.
It's not that clever, but I'll give them credit because at least it's doing something a little different, and I'll give it credit for that. Even though I really shouldn't, since they've been around, 7 years and have 6 albums. You know what? I'm not going to give it to them. I just thought about that. No,
that's fine.
Not that clever.
That's fine. And I mean, and I will say, "Don't Cut Me Out" is said well within the 20s times in this album, getting into the 30s. "Don't Cut Me Out" is said a lot, and again, that's a pet peeve of mine. And again, I don't want to mean anything to you. This is coming from other songs. Like, there is harkens back to other songs, and those songs aren't that great, so there's this meandering again, but that's something different. As far as I go, this one I did like, but again, lyrically, it is a struggle. For me, again, it breaks that cardinal sin of say more. Say more. Don't repeat the same thing that you're doing over and over. Please. Especially if you're an indie band. You're not a pop art. You're not a pop act. You're not, unless you are going to do something that is very poppy, is very catchy, has those hooks, you can do something like this. But on an indie, what can be considered bare bones, minimalist, it doesn't work. It can't work, and it never will work. So,
actually, you know what? I want you for our next podcast. You want to go through and see how many times they use throughout this whole album use the words I, me, and you.
I can look that up. Up. Yeah,
we'll do that. We'll figure that out because again, it's a very limited.
It's very limited, and I will definitely. I will look at me. I will look at you. I will look at I. And I think there's still 3. I think we need to do is just I, me, you.
Yep.
Other 3.
That's just basically.
That's basic. Okay. Yeah, and we'll get a tally.
Whatever, but yeah, because the I and you are very just dominant here, and again, it's just it stands out. It stands out because maybe because you and I focus on lyrics a lot. You more than me, actually.
Yeah, me. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I look at vocal lyrics a bit, but you're like a real stickler for that, much more than I am. So the fact that I'm pointing this out, it should be like a red flag to our listeners that be the guy who doesn't really give a shit about a lot of that. A lot of the time is like, hey, that's a lot of eyes.
It's a lot, and I think one of the big reasons why I am a stickler for it, and again, I'm gonna make it very clear, my band didn't go anywhere. Right, the bands I was in didn't go anywhere, but I was one of the principal songwriters in several of the bands I was in. So that's one of the things I really looked at, and one of the things that when you're writing as a lyricist, you look for the pitfalls and those types of things. And so when I see a established band doing it and failing at it, and one of the things that's bringing it down, I point it out a lot, and it's just one of those things where as a lyricist, I find it very, very lazy at the fact that people just say the same thing over and over. And again, I get it with pop stuff. That's a little bit of a different thing, but that's not my bag. So when you get into things that are my bag, like again, on paper, I should love this album. I really should. It should tick off a bunch of boxes.
Yeah, same here, because I love a lot of indie rock, but again, when the influences overshadow.
Yes.
And the lyrics are just whatever. I mean, again, but.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, you as a lyricist, I mean, you wrote that great song, I Am Me, the You of I.
I did write that great song, didn't I? But to my credit, what inspired me was honestly the best movie of all time, Cruise Control. I mean, that's me too, Cruise Control.
You're a huge Jason Patric fan, I know.
I am. I mean, anything that he's in, I have to watch. It's just, yeah. I mean, he's amazing. I mean, he was in Sleepers. He was in Rush. He was in Geronimo, An American Legend. He was in The Prince, The Lost Boys. He was in Narc. He is just like, I think, a wonderful, wonderful talent, an American icon, a hero. I mean, how many other people can say they were in Solar Babies and The Beast of War and Teach 109, the TV movie, and Denial and After Dark?
All right, Paul, get off his IMDb. You're not fooling anybody.
I was waiting for you to
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, we'll never get fooled again.
You never fool me once, you never get fooled again. Next one is The Rip, and this to me was the most original sounding. At least to me, was the most original sounding song. Now the problem with it is the lyrics once again.
Yeah, it's my, you, I. I mean, it's all that. And now my heart aches, 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 and now my heart aches.
Mm-hmm. The top of my voice, the top of my lungs.
Loud noise.
Which is also, by the way, top of my voice, top of my lungs. Those are lyrics taken straight from Ed Kowalski with Tricky, Revolution. So keep that in mind. It's all that I want. It's all that I want. I pulled it apart, got sick of the whole thing. I know what I want. I know how that seems. The back of my head, the back of my hands. I threw it away. Again, it wouldn't be that bad, but you've already said this on like 9 of your other fucking songs. So stop it.
Yeah, they're repeating the same gist over
and over.
And I get, it seems like a breakup album. I'm just concluding and depression and wanting to be away from the world, and I get it. It just has been done so many times and so much better than this.
That's the problem. It's been better elsewhere. And the problem is you're pulling in from those sources that it was better elsewhere. So that's a problem. So next we get to the title track.
Yeah, Waterslide, Diving Board, Ladder to the Sky, which is the only song I actually kind of liked.
Yep.
It's like an acoustic song.
Mm-hmm. I want to know what vibe you got, what band you got a vibe of.
You know, at this point, Paul, it was all of them.
Okay. For me,
bands. I got a vibe from all the bands from 2007.
This was Mazzy Star. This had Mazzy Star, Cowboy Junkies to me all over it.
Yeah. Like, again, like it. I like this better than all of it. I'm not. I try to find a good thing in every album. This to me was the highlight spot in this album because it still goes on the eye stuff, but it also the image, giving us some imagery. Waterslide, Diving Board, Ladder to the Sky, the line "crying hard on a phone call with my brother." It's like these little things, something like that, gives an image that we don't really get on the rest of the album.
I think.
We get a visual there, and then it goes kind of back, trying hard to keep it together. So you got me on a hook there, and then, you go back to the I don't want the end, I don't want the beginning. It's going back to the I.
Yep.
So you have this little moment where it's actually like they have like something that kind of hooks you in a bit, like a visual with the lyrics, and then it falls back and. I'm just going to call it their safe zone then. Their safety zone.
Yeah.
Like this is what works, and then we're going to try something here, and then see how that goes, and then they're basically with that part, they're just dipping their toes in the water.
So,
and a band at 7 years, don't be dipping your toes in it. Go all the fucking way in.
Yes.
I mean, because it's make or break at this point, and you have to do something that resonates, and this will probably resonate with some people, but they're going to, my guess is they're going to grow out of it. Like I grew out of the band Korn.
Yes.
like.
Yeah, I grew out of Korn. Absolutely. I liked Korn. I grew out of Korn. There's a lot of bands I grew out of.
Yeah, you grow out of it. Like the bands that succeed, and it's like you keep going back to because there's something there that just ropes you in. But my problem with this band is like they really they'll rope you in for a little bit, but then you're going to discover. Most people will probably just discover something else, especially if they're listening to indie music.
Well, like the punk band Pennywise. I grew out of Pennywise.
Yeah.
Because Pennywise was quit your job, quit school, drop out, do nothing. Pennywise will take care of you. And now, like fucking 40 years later, it's still quit your job, quit school, quit doing everything, listen to Pennywise, you'll be fine. Like, so it's kind of like, no. Yeah, you grow out of things. And speaking of growing out, I think the biggest problem with this album is the word of vulnerability, right? Like we're talking about here, this title track, the Waterslide, diving board, ladder to the sky, crying hard on the phone with my brother, trying to keep it all together. There is actual, what I feel, sincerity and some unguardedness.
Yeah, and that's what drew me in.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like this song.
But the rest of the album is, as you said, it is absolutely a breakup. It's a sad album. But the problem is, how can we as an audience be invested in it when you won't let us in as an audience? There's a lot of wall deflecting from the songwriters here.
Yeah, I would agree. It doesn't give us, I mean, we don't need the details, like the literal details, but give us a visual. Give us like why, what happened, like how did you react, how did you feel, instead of I felt this and I don't want to be blah blah blah. That's not good songwriting.
Right.
I mean, like go back to the Beatles, your day breaks, your mind aches, you find all her words of kindness, whatever. Like it's painting a picture of a breakup, and this is just like, I don't want to be alone. I don't want, like.
Yep.
I don't want to be loved. I don't want to be loved. That's what, like, angry 14-year-olds yell.
Yes.
When they go through a bad breakup.
Yes, there definitely is a distinction of, and again, I don't want to, I want to give the artists more credit, because again, this is only a snapshot, right? I didn't go back and listen to everything. But I feel like there's probably some really heavy shit going on here. And that, unfortunately, what's the lead person's name in the band? Anyways, the point is that I feel like there's a wall there where, like, part of what you, as a songwriter and as a musician, you use your music to get through some of your shit. Mm-hmm. And it's very telling when the songwriter either won't go there or doesn't have the tools to go there. Like example, when we talked about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift had more intelligent, thoughtful, insightful lyrics going through some shit and threw it out there as a pop artist. And here you are, you're an indie, which should be your bread and butter. You're doing sadcore, yet you're not letting the audience in to the point where it's very generic. So why should we care if we're getting the vibe that you don't care and you don't want to give us the story of why we should care?
Yeah. If you don't want to give us the story, the thing about creative writing, most songwriters ours, you just then create a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be autobiographical, but it comes from this place where this hurt comes from.
Yes.
And that's what a lot, so we don't need to know all the details.
We don't want to know.
Gives you the details because she's really good at painting these pictures lyrically.
Yep.
Here, it's just like, I don't want to be loved. I don't want to be loved. It's just, again, it's the telephone poles. It's like, what, you're not giving us a whole lot to work with.
No, you're not. And I will say again, you don't have to give us the full story. Like, I don't want Juarez.
Spin a yarn. Spin a yarn loosely based off of it. Like,
yep.
It's what almost every songwriter does.
Yeah, again, we don't need Lanigan's Juarez, right? Like, I don't need to know you're wearing the diaper and you're about to take the stitch, and all that shit. Like, you don't have to get us the nitty gritty details,
but sometimes we need that, Paul. Sometimes we need Lanigan's Juarez, and I will die on the hill of Lanigan's Juarez.
I will too. Like I said, I wanted more of that song, but again, I'm sure someone would know. So but, yeah, it's one of those things where lower the wall a little bit, so that way we can relate to what you're going through. Because at the end of the day, this feels like, to me, that sad girl in high school that hung out with the goth kids that really didn't have it that bad, but acted like they had it that bad. That's what this feels like. Like, yeah, you're maybe going through some shit, but maybe you're not. And that's why it's so surface level, because you're just trying to connect with people on like oh my God, these kids are sad. My audience is sad. I got to portray sad. What is sad? It almost feels like a psychopath or a sociopath version of emotion.
I won't even go that far. And we all thought I'd be the one throwing out the sociopath line.
Well,
I'm going to reel that one a little back a little. I think it's just somebody. I think her name is Dana.
Dana White?
Dana Margolin.
Yeah.
I think she just didn't want to let her guard down too much, and that's what I got from it. I didn't get Patrick Bateman at the.
I'm not saying, and I shouldn't say sociopath. I meant, I shouldn't say psychopath. I meant more sociopath in the terms of.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting Ted Bundy at the lunch table.
At the Porridge Radio. No, what I mean by this is you have those people that feign emotion and feign problems. And again, some of this is so surface level and so whatever. There's a few songs on here that go places, but the rest of it felt almost manufactured, like I'm checking off the boxes of what indie sad should be, almost like what country was for a while. Have to have I lost my dog, check. Have to have my wife left me, check. Have to have I lost the trailer, check. This felt like it was ticking off the sad boxes just to tick them off and not actually have anything of value to add. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
So that's my vibe with the album. So, Joe, I should ask you, would you recommend Porridge Radio, Waterslide, Diving Board, and Ladder to the Sky?
Well, no, I wouldn't. Again, it's derivative. The lyrics are pretty shallow. We've kind of gone through that, and not very inspiring. I would have been more forgiving if this was their first album. And they haven't been around for 7 years, but at this point, no. At this point they should be progressing beyond something like this, in my opinion. So no, I would not recommend Porridge Radio.
So, for all the shit I said, I'm actually going to disagree with you, and I'm actually going to recommend the album. And the reason
spent an hour shitting on an album that you're going to recommend,
because I shit on it because I do think it can be better. But the thing is that there are things here that I enjoy. I understand where some people would have a hard time going back to like the Shags, or going and listening to, especially younger, audiences, going back to the original, going back through some of the older catalogs that you and I had, where they are grabbing from some of those greats. So I would say there is some things here. I did like Flowers. I did like Waterslide, Diving Board.
You like Flowers because it reminded you of the Rolling Stones.
I'm just saying, there is some things here that I do like, but the problem is there's only a few things here. So I do think there are some tracks here that'd be worth checking out. I would encourage our audience to listen to it and make their own opinions of it. Again, I'm listening as a critic. I'm looking at this from the lens that I have, which is I was pulled back from all these other artists that it reminded me of. I cannot take myself out of that and, take that lens away from me. So I would say, you know what, if you don't have that lens or that viewpoint, you very well may like what's here because you won't be distracted like you and I were going, oh man, that reminds me of this band. Oh man, now I want to listen to them. Right? So as much as I'd recommend people go listen to those other artists, I realize some aren't. So yeah, I think there's about 3 or 4 tracks here that are worth hearing. I will say nothing on this album made it to my likes list. But that's, again, only because when I was listening, I know I want to listen to that instead. But I am still going to give it a recommendation of, I would say check it out. It is somewhat interesting in terms of some of the stuff that's there. There's some glimmer. There's some things there. But, I mean, out of the 13 tracks, maybe 3 are really, I think, worth anything. But I'm still going to give it a recommendation, Joe. I am. Yep, I am.
That's the weirdest recommendation. So remember, Miley Cyrus, just because he sold 27 million and revolutionized pop music for a time, you'll never be as good as Porridge Radio, according to.
I did recommend a different Miley Cyrus album, sir. I did.
Just remember that. Like, you can put out like a song full of bangers, but Paul's going to recommend the boring album with the shitty song, right?
I don't think that was a boring album with shitty songwriting at all.
No, I mean, this album, Porridge Radio.
Oh, this one? Again, yeah. I am. Because the difference there was with that album of Miley Cyrus's, you already knew the songs that were big, so there was no reason to go in and dig out the other tracks, where no one knows what this is. And there are some songs here, like Flowers, like Waterslide. I kind of like Splintered. End of Last Year wasn't horrible. So yes, there's some things.
Those are just ringing endorsements. It wasn't that bad, or it wasn't absolutely horrible.
Because again, from my point of view of being pulled in, because again, for me it's hard because I am such a Dresden Dolls fan. That this is really, really difficult for me to not every single track go, Dresden Dolls did it better. Dresden Dolls did it better. And at the end of the day, I would say, where I would not make the recommendation, if you want to listen to the Dresden Dolls all day long, then you can skip this album. Absolutely. If you've heard the Dresden Dolls, if you like the Dresden Dolls, if you're familiar with the Dresden Dolls, this is going to come off as Dollar Store, Dollar General, Dresden Dolls.
Or you've heard any indie album within the last 20 years. 20 years.
20 years.
22 years, last 22. Last 25 years. If you're an indie album in the last 25 years, this is going to be really derivative shit for you.
And again, I will say there's a few of those songs there. So that's the key difference between, like, when I make my recommendations, I look past the stuff of, okay, do you know the radio hits? Okay, so you already listened to that. So is there a reason to dig in beyond the radio hits? And that's why with Taylor Swift, I was able to go, yes, I can recommend that because there's songs that weren't on the radio on that album that actually are really good. But when it came to Miley Cyrus, I was like, the Bangers album, you heard everything that was really worth hearing off that album. There was no other reason to dig into the album. So that's part of where my recommendations come in from. So yeah, I would say I know we talked about it. I have my issues with this album, but I do think that there's some things there that the audience may like. And I'm going to say, yes, give it a check it out. Skip Rotten. Skip that one. That's a terrible song. But, there's other things on here that you may enjoy.
Well, we could say that about every album we've reviewed, Paul. That's
No, we can't. No, we cannot.
Yeah, we can. We absolutely can. There's an audience for everything. So
did Pat Boone have a song that was
I
worth
review
anything?
Albums. My recommendation is based on if the album's good or not. This is not good, so don't. I say don't listen to it.
Fair enough. It's better than Pat Boone.
But that's not really. That's like asking what's the choice between, like, a shit sandwich and diarrhea soup, you know? Like,
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, I get why you did not like this album. Like, I totally get it. I absolutely do. And I will say the other thing with it was, compared to the first listen 2 weeks ago, compared to now, this grew on me a little bit. Certain tracks did grow on me. So I had that experience, and I don't think you did.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So there we go. All right, Joe. So, buddy, what's going on at the Joe Down?
We're going to be reviewing Clueless soon, so.
Oh, no. Okay. And how do you feel about that?
I don't think I've seen it since the mid-'90s, so I guess I don't really have an opinion on that.
I'm interested. Loved your review of First Blood, by the way. Loved it. All right, so you guys are going to be doing Clueless.
Yep.
All right, Joe. This one went way longer than I thought it was going to. This episode. Why'd you ask me what we're doing next week?
Paul, what are we doing next week?
So, Joe, I'm going to give you a road choice here. We're either going to go left, straight, or right. I do want to ask you before I give you that. Actually, what is your time? I know audience are going to be another 2 weeks before the next episode, as of the recording of this one, because we got some things going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you something before I throw something on the table for my choices. What kind of timeline, given it 2 weeks, would you have a little bit of time to dig into, put a little bit more thought into something that we'd be listening to?
Put a lot of thought into everything we listen to, Paul.
Okay, good. All right, good.
I'm very offended you'd even bring that up.
Oh, my God. You're such a fuck. More so is your time. I'm trying to respect your time, Joe. I'm trying to respect your time.
I mean, I don't want to listen to a 10-hour album, Paul.
Okay.
If it's going to be like an anthology,
nope.
You just you shove that in a sack and go away. Like,
that's phenomenal.
An hour, 2 hours, I'm fine. But like, if we're getting past the 3-hour mark, then
No. Okay, that's what I want to know.
That's not even an album. That you're just picking like an anthology or a box set of something.
So nope, we're good. Okay. So, Joe, are we going to take left, straight, or right?
Paul, I'm going to go hard like I do with my politics, right.
Oh, boy. Okay. Are you, okay. All right. Joe picked right. So this will work out well because this will work out great because I'm going to give us the I, me, you count on this album as we do the Dresden Dolls.
I guess they were all Dresden Dolls.
They're all Dresden Dolls, and we're going to do their album, Yes, Virginia.
West Virginia?
Yes, Virginia. Like, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus.
Okay. Who's the dude in this band? That weird chucklehead?
Neil Peart? No. No, it's Neil Gilman.
Okay. Neil Gilman.
I think that's who it is. Is Neil
married to Neil Gaiman, who wrote.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, she's married to Neil Gaiman. It's Brian Vallone. Brian Vallone.
Okay, because you brought up, you said like Gaiman was in the Dresden Dolls in the beginning.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, that's her husband.
We got to get that corrected.
Yep.
Neil Gaiman was never in the Dresden Dolls. Oh. He was in the Rolling Stones.
Yes. No, Brian Vallone, who was in Violent Femmes, was in Dresden Dolls.
Okay.
So yes, yes. I apologize. That was my fuckery.
Yeah, I was a little confused. I was like, I'm pretty sure he wrote Sandman. I'm pretty sure he wasn't, like American Gods. Like, I didn't think he was in the Dresden Dolls.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Well, you had me so bad. I'm like, but I was too angry going into this review.
I wish you would have. I wish you would have said something. I really.
I was too. I wanted to get into the album, Paul. I didn't have time for that kind of fuckery, you know.
Yeah, no, that's that. Well, I wish you would have done because I'm sure our audience is going. Wait a minute. Paul Muad'Dib's a fucking idiot.
We got the correction. We got it corrected. Everyone.
Yes.
We got it corrected.
Yes, we got it corrected.
And I want to do one plug because last time you brought up the new Game of Thrones and
yes,
the Rings. I want to recommend a documentary.
Okay.
It's on Shudder.
Okay.
Shudder has a Gwar documentary.
Oh my God! Yes,
and it's fantastic. So people check that out. It's really good. I'm not a huge Gwar fan, but I was fascinated by it.
And it's called This Is Gwar?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, I apologize. So she is married to Neil Gaiman, who wrote a little-known thing called The Sandman, and Good Omens, and Coraline.
and he was the tambourinist for the Rolling Stones.
He was the tambourinist for the Rolling Stones. He also is known for penning Superman, being an artist for the Superman comics. He was Beowulf. I'm fucking off at this point. No, and he was married to Charlie Cox. So no, that was my mistake. That was totally my mistake. But that's where the Neil Gaiman collection comes in. It's what that is. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing, is kind of a follow-up, which I think is interesting that we're gonna do that. Yeah. So we got that, which is nice. All right, so you gave the plug for the Gwar documentary. Anything else we got going on, Joe?
No, we don't.
Okay. All right. Do you want to take us out?
Absolutely not.
This has been Rate That Album with Paul Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming. Thank you for listening.